As the Edmonton Oilers get closer and closer to playing the LA Kings in Game 1 of the NHL playoffs, there are still some changes that may be made by this Edmonton Oilers organization ahead of Game 1, and I'm going to be talking about what they could be, why they probably shouldn't do it, and some of the performers that I expect to see in this playoffs, as well as the key to beating the LA Kings. So I'm going to be talking about all of that here in this video. Before we get into it, though, we know that 97% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot to get all of your Edmonton Oilers news, you're in the right spot. Make sure to hit the sub button, join us along here as we cover everything this Edmonton Oilers organization has to bring you in these playoffs, and you'll stay up to date with everything as it happens. But let's get straight into our first topic here today, which is Dylan Holloway. Really, he needs to play in this playoff series. Now, I know there's a lot of people who've been really wondering whether or not he will be in the lineup due to the return of some players and whatnot, and finalizing this whole roster ahead of the playoff game number 1. So this is what Preston Hodgkinson had to say. Holloway has been given the coaching staff every reason to keep him in the lineup. Will be interesting to see if Knoblauch keeps Kane on the fourth line for Game 1. Now, I also have the lines here, as this is what they have been in the practice over the past few days, and with a few changes here and there, but as of the latest bit of news, this is what we have. So, right now, Dylan Holloway's on the third line with McLeod and Corey Perry. I don't mind this right now. You know, obviously there's going to be a few changes here and there, depending on what really they learn in Game 1, which is still going to be a real telltale thing before they actually finalize a lineup. It's after Game 1, what they learn, what they're going to realize the LA Kings are doing. It's likely going to be a 1-3-1, which we know. I do believe the Edmonton Oilers know. So it's going to be a few changes here and there to see what works best for Game 2. So that's what I'm going to say for ahead of this whole situation before anything is actually finalized. But we also have this here news from Daniel Nugent-Bowman. He says, Chris Knoblauch believes Evander Kane and Mattias Janmark will be able to play Game 1 on Monday. He expects Kane to be on the ice for tomorrow's practice, which was yesterday, this tweet was, and he was on ice for practice this morning. If both are ready to go, Knoblauch said the decision to scratch Dylan Holloway will be made Monday morning. I really don't think that Dylan Holloway should be scratched. I really think that he has too much potential to throw away for these playoffs. You know, obviously, you got Connor McDavid, you have Zach Hyman, you have Leon Draisaitl, and those are the guys that we know are likely going to be the X factors in this series. However, the LA Kings know that as well, and they're going to be putting everything they can on their defensive side towards those players. This is a very good defensive team that we're going up against, so having that ability to have more players, sneaky players that are going to have to be covered even outside of the main players on this team will be such an integral part of the playoff success that this team will have to offer as the series goes on. So this is one thing that I really think Dylan Holloway needs to be in the lineup. Mattias Janmark and Evander Kane, both of those guys, still good, but I think Dylan Holloway's potential is too much. There is also that factor, though, where you don't really know what his whole situation will be in a new environment in the playoffs. But Dylan Holloway's the type of player with the experience, the professionalism, that I think he'll be perfectly fine in whatever role you give him in these playoffs. So one thing to keep an eye on ahead of tomorrow's game will be whether or not they choose to scratch Dylan Holloway. But in my opinion, shouldn't be the case here for game number 1. But let's move on to the key to beating the LA Kings. Now, this is one thing that is going to be a really important part of this series. Is, you know, there's obviously going to have the main pieces, like I said, of McDavid, Hyman, Draisaitl. Those guys, they're really going to be the keys to winning. But there's another one here, which is the Oilers must win and have to win ugly games and be ugly at times, which really might be seen a bit weird, but that really is what this team is going to have to do. And that's exactly what Mattias Ekholm had to say here. The ever-thoughtful Mattias Ekholm summarized this nicely, so he'll take it away. You're going to have to win games that you don't deserve to. It sounds bad, it sounds weird, but sometimes two teams are tired, sometimes two teams are lacking and not having the night. You've got to be the one not playing worse. You can play bad and win, that's a huge thing in the playoffs, and you can't always outscore your opponent. And this is exactly right, you know, exactly what he said as well. It does seem weird, it does seem like something that you don't want to have a bad game. You don't want to win an ugly game, but you're going to have to, especially in a playoff scenario where people are hurt, people are tired, and people are just not on their games at some point. And, you know, it's especially in the playoffs where you have a certain amount of games you have to win, and in certain amount of games, certain amount of times, certain situations. It's a whole mess of things that will really need to be important for in their scenario. So winning in the dirty games, winning in the dirty battles and whatnot, that is what will ultimately get the Oilers here deeper in the playoffs. So we know that their offense, their ability to score, win healthy, win 5-on-5, win on their game is excellent, if not one of the best in the remaining playoffs. But being able to win when you're not on your game is once again another important part of what this team is going to have to do. We know that not every team has a player like a Draisaitl, like a McDavid. So being able to have that, winning in the dirty areas, I'll say, in the corners and places where people don't want to go, and winning games that you don't deserve to win is really an important part, and something that has been really integral into many teams' playoff formation, playoff situation over the previous season. So one thing the Edmonton Oilers are going to have to do is going to have to stick with their game plan, but also when they have to abort it, they're going to have to abort it and just do whatever works. So I do like what Mattias Ekholm, the way he said that, it really showed that this team is acknowledging that this situation is going to be likely available at some point in these playoffs for the Edmonton Oilers, and they're going to have to take advantage of it when it does come down to that. But one final topic here today that I wanted to discuss is Corey Perry. This is a playoff guy if I've ever seen one. And we know Corey Perry's been just about everywhere in his NHL career, in every situation, from being a top guy in the NHL, to being a fourth liner, to being a guy that's in front of the net, to being a guy that's, just everywhere on the ice. And his stats for the playoffs absolutely show that. In his career, 124 points in 196 games played in the playoffs, and even in the 2022-2023 season, still as old as he is at 37 at that point, 5 points in 6 games. Now, I know that was on the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I don't really see much of a difference between this Tampa Bay Lightning roster then and the Edmonton Oilers roster now. They still have that extreme talent, and Corey Perry is only going to add to that. And speaking of a player that will go into the dirty areas, that will be in the situations that you don't want to be in, it's Corey Perry. That's the guy who will do anything to get a team a win, anything to put your team ahead, and in that whole scenario, in the scheme of things that this Edmonton Oilers roster is using, he's the guy for that right now. So one player that I want everybody here to watch is Corey Perry in the playoffs. His situation is a bit different from everywhere else now, but still, once again, if he is on the line that they have here with Dylan Holloway and McLeod, I do think that he can pull off some pretty crazy things, even as old as he is now. So, like I said, one player to watch, keep an eye on, Corey Perry in these playoffs. He is a playoff guy. But that's all I got here in this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to give the video a like. Hit the sub button as well if you do want to stay up to date with all of your Edmonton Oilers news. We'll have it here to bring you everything that this team has to offer during these playoffs. But like I said, that's all I got. I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.